On Spectrum tonight, President Museveni defends his directive authorizing the signing of oil agreements despite a moratorium by... Did his explanation justify his actions? Today, President Museveni delivered a statement to Parliament explaining why he ordered the immediate signing of production sharing agreements with Tullow Oil against a parliamentary resolution that all transactions in this sector be stayed until all the relevant laws are enacted by Parliament. In his statement, the President indicated that the government had to act swiftly to avoid unforeseen problems which were likely to be caused by new delays, stressing that the agreements were roundly good for the country. The President also addressed himself on different issues, including the building of the refinery, how the proceeds of oil will be utilized, issues to do with environment protection, and other matters incidental to the sector. He explained that prior to his order to have the agreement signed, he had consulted with the NRM caucus, who gave him the green light. However, the opposition boycotted this special sitting, saying it was wrong for them to participate in a process that undermines the mandate of Parliament. The opposition's argument is based on a widely held view that the President should have sought parliamentary approval before authorizing the signing of the agreement, since Parliament had unanimously opposed these contracts. So tonight, we analyze President Museveni's explanation to try and understand if he acted in the nation's interest. Our guests tonight, Honorable Mike Sebalu, Ugandan representative in the East African Parliament, also from the NRM party. You're most welcome, Honorable Sebalu.
Thank you very much, moderator. And may I say that I bring you greetings, all listeners and viewers from the East African community. And I hope that we are definitely going to have a good interaction and a very informed debate regarding this very important sector. Good evening.
We are also joined by Mr. Dickens Kamugisha, Executive Director of AFIEGO. AFIEGO is the African Institute on Energy Governance. He's also a member of the Publish What You Pay Uganda group. That's a civil society organization, a global one that tries to seek transparency in extractive industries. You're most welcome, Dickens.
Thank you, Edmond, and good evening, listeners.
We're also joined by Honorable Betty Aol, Deputy Opposition Chief Whip, also Woman MP for Gulu District. You're most welcome, Honorable Aol.
Thank you. Good evening, and good evening, moderator, Radio 1. I'm grateful for this opportunity. Good evening, viewers.
Dickens, Mr. Kamugisha, how would you characterize the President's speech?
Thank you, Edmond. I think I would characterize it as, a climax of abuse of institutions. Because this is a subject that is on an issue where Parliament has already taken position. Say, please, stop. He has gone ahead against that resolution of Parliament and is coming back to address the same Parliament. I think, but the substance, I think it was like a lecture, lecturing your children. No ABCD, no question, no what. What I have said is what is there. And listen, please.
All right.
So for me, I think a speech where you find it is already against the rules, against the laws of the country, against disrespect of the institution. Even if it is a very good speech, it just brings it to something that cannot take this country anyway.
All right, we'll look at the specific content. You've given a broad outline of the context of that speech. Honorable Sebalu, what's your view on that speech? Was it a good speech? You come from the NRM.
Yeah, I think we need to put this in perspective if we are to appreciate the spirit and the genesis of this whole interaction, which I find to be very positive and it should be welcome. And I don't see it as a gesture of disrespect. I think we really need to qualify this. One, we definitely have a resolution of Parliament clearly indicating that the negotiations and conclusion of agreements be stayed pending laws being put in place, and that was a subject of further discussion in many other fora and consultations, and there emerged a view that that be limited to new contracts being signed, and I think that qualification was made, and he's made it in his submission, that those that were already underway, those that were already in the process, in the pipeline, because definitely they are subject to certain conditionalities, they are subject to certain arrangements that could not easily be overturned by by the spur of the moment. And what we saw in place is that the ongoing or the process that was underway regarding Talo and those other arrangements was given no objection, and it was signed. But the president was clear, even in his submission, that with the laws in place that are going to be made, all future negotiations and agreements and contracts are going to be done in accordance with the law, and they will be a subject of the law. So the idea of coming to Parliament to explain himself and give reasons why that had to be done the way it was, to me was a high degree of humility from the head of state to say, look, we've been able to do this, but can you take benefit of why and how it was done? And these agreements were signed, was it on Monday or Tuesday? And 2-3 days after someone is coming before the House. To me, I think it is something we need to appreciate. And what we need to look at, and I made this submission elsewhere, is that the agreement that was signed must be availed to Parliament, so that the discussion now is not why it was signed. The discussion is better to look at the substance. Is it a good agreement? Does it take care of the interest of the people? Does it serve the interest of the country? I think that is where debate should be. Good debate, in my view. But as to why it was signed, to me it is a secondary issue at this point in time. But the fact that the principal has come and has subordinated himself to Parliament and say these are the circumstances and these are the reasons, to me it shows good cooperation and complementarity between the two organs of government, because we need to appreciate that each of the organs has specific roles to play. Parliament has this legislative aspect, and in this respect it can deal with the laws and the legislation that we need, but the responsibility of negotiating and concluding agreements is an executive function. So the best case scenario would be where the two work in tandem, collaborating with one another, and I guess the spirit of this one is that this is the last time we are having this, because it was already along the way and pending conclusion. But now that we are going to have the law in place, all others are going to be subjected to the laws of the land. And the bill is already in the House. It has been circulated. I have a copy of it even in the car, the bill, which will be given priority, and it will be concluded. So the issue of time and other factors to avoid big losses in such transactions is quite important, because it's contractual. The process was started before the resolutions came up, so holding them could easily create losses that may not be good for this country. So let's look at the agreement, the contents therein, and how they answer our development needs as a country. To me, that's where the debate should be right now.
Two things briefly. One, you think he showed Parliament respect by coming to explain to them?
So I think he could easily have said, look, he could easily have called a press conference to explain to the country.
But he went to
press
the
conference.
House.
He could even have just written and sent a written statement. But the fact that he came and appeared before Parliament, and his submission now is the property of Parliament. Actually, he did indicate at the close of his submission that he laid it on table. He even indicated that he's going to send them a much more cleaned copy,
yes,
readed with mistakes, so it is available and Parliament can debate it, because it was laid on table, and the Speaker promised that at an appropriate time they can have a debate over the same, because it's now property of Parliament.
And you're saying he was basically cutting losses. He mentioned that some 2 oil wells were given to these people apparently in compensation of the time lost. Is that
there are those aspects.
So
there are those aspects of contractual obligations, and to cut your losses, to avoid incurring such losses, because these companies are employing people, and they will put their bills on the table and say, look, your actions have had the effect of making us incurring such losses.
Right.
So in contractual terms, the earlier you cut such losses, the better, and then you make good on other obligations.
Honorable Ochan, you look very, very pleased with the President's speech today, even though you come from the opposition. What makes you so happy with his speech today?
One thing, I can see the violation of the Constitution. I can also, when Honorable from EALA talks about time and losses, it was in October, 11th October, that Parliament passed these resolutions. And accordingly, now if you flash back, 11th October, and we gave last year,
yes,
we gave government 1 month. Nothing happened.
1 month to produce the
law. 1
laws.
month to produce the law.
Yes, you wanted that produced in a hurry. Go on.
Now leave alone the law. If President really respected, if he was somebody who respects Parliament so much, he wouldn't have signed the agreement and come to explain why he signed the agreement. I think the first thing which should have been done was for him to come and seek maybe the advice or discuss with the Parliament,
yes,
before signing of that agreement. There is something fishy, very fishy, in this signing of agreement. And I think if all of us decide to take maybe back seat on this, the way I see those who call themselves movement members of Parliament, if they decide to just, bury their faces in the sand, then I see a lot of us move toward the President taking over everything in this country, and Uganda becomes his property. And there is no use of the law, even the Constitution, and even to say that Parliament is an arm of government. This is contempt of Parliament. And it's like there is nothing wrong.
All right.
There's something is very wrong there. Okay. And maybe we need to dig even further, investigate. Maybe we will see the agreement which is signed. And I will not be surprised to see that this agreement is not pro-people, but could be agreement which somebody is able to fulfill his desires, the desires of somebody, not the people of Uganda.
Right.
If we respect people of Uganda, let us also respect the Constitution. And if we have to do something without following the law, then let us also consult before. It is really gross abuse of Parliament.
Gross abuse of Parliament. Gross abuse of Parliament.
And members of Parliament, they may be happy somewhere, or especially those in government side, they may be happy that, we have done it. The President was very humble. He humbled himself. They think that is humility. If it was humility, it should have come before the signing of agreement. That is not humility. I don't call it humility at all. That is arrogancy.
Arrogance. Honorable Chan, these MPs, the NRM MPs who are in Parliament, you boycotted it. Now, these MPs have been on your side much of the time. Even the Speaker has been accused of siding with the opposition. Today, they agreed. Would it make a difference if it came to Parliament before? They would probably still have passed it. They have the number.
Well, if it came to Parliament before, that would be okay, because we know that at least the resolutions which we passed in October was not in vain, was respected. But now this one doing things without even respecting, when members of Parliament agreed in principle that stay everything until when the law is in place, then you go ahead with those agreements and everything about oil. You had the President, those who attended, at least you had the President say that for him the feeling was like it was as if he has just taken over the government.
Or he's about to take over.
That is about the oil.
Yes.
So he is now equating it to 1986.
Yes.
Which means he has become strong because of that oil.
Well, if he's qualified, he's a president, he's the father of the nation. He expects things, good things to come to
we need to qualify the president's statement.
And
I think it was clear. He did indicate that there have been two strategic mistakes that have been committed in this country. One was when foreigners were influencing the process of ensuring that the country does not equip the military to engage
the rebels.
The rebels.
Yes.
And that was creating problems because a big part of this country was under rebellion, and definitely this was not strategic for the country. Security is paramount for any country. The second one was the delay of the energy, the dam, Jagali, and ensuring that we have enough electricity. So he indicated that the third strategic mistake that was about to be committed, but which was averted by this signing, was the fact that we are going to delay signing of contracts and agreements that were already in play, and that could have unforeseen consequences. So he said the fact that that was able to be done, I feel like as a country,
there's a victory. It's a victory for you.
It's something that has saved the country from a bad situation. So it was in context, and I want us to appreciate. At least I was not in the house, but I was in your office upstairs, in the speaker's gallery, watching. I don't know where my sister was, because there was an indication that they didn't want to attend it.
Completely, I was not also in the house.
This is Spectrum on Radio 1 tonight. President Museveni defends his directive authorizing the signing of oil agreements despite a moratorium by Parliament. Did his explanation justify his actions? Our guests tonight, Honorable Mike Sebalu from the East African Parliament, coming from the Edmond party as well. Honorable Betty Aol, and Deputy Opposition Chief Whip, also Gulu District Woman MP, she comes from the FDC, and Mr. Dickens Kamugisha, Executive Director of AFIEGO, which is the African Institute on Energy Governance. You can contribute to this discussion by sending us your messages to 7197. That is Spectrum message 727.
Can I ask a question to him?
Okay, ask that question.
Yeah, my biggest question is, Parliament started last week.
Yes.
We opened last week, and we have been in place. The signing of the agreement took place when Parliament was already back. Why couldn't the President seek the consent of Parliament about the signing of this agreement? And indeed, sometime also when we have something very urgent, I know that the passing of the law, that law of the traditional rulers,
yes,
that happened in February when we were for campaign. It was just calling of people, and in 30 minutes the law was passed. Was it too much to call the members of Parliament? That members of Parliament, the recess has been long, we have something which is urgent, the country is losing a lot on this, we need the agreements signed, so can you come and legislate this oil law so that we are comfortable? Couldn't that one be done if we really want to take the country to the right process, we follow the right procedure, and we respect all the arms of government, not only executive arms? Couldn't we do that?
Okay, I think I'd like us to very briefly, then we move.
You see, these are contractual aspects which are negotiated.
Yeah.
Actually, the President even indicated he was able to pull off good bargains for the country, like the issue of the refinery, like even the issue of some tax arrangement. So once you've agreed on such positions and they are contractual and negotiated, holding them too long could be counterproductive.
All right, this is Spectrum on Radio 1. We're going for a break. We'll be back. Stay tuned.
Just like an uncut diamond is brought to life by unmatched skill and dedication, only our brewmaster holds the secret to crafting a crystal malt lager. Under the exacting international standards that now breweries, he uses only the finest, most carefully selected grains of roasted crystal malt and sets in motion the delicate process of releasing their full roast. The result is a world-class beer with a fresher aroma, a richer golden color, and a maltier taste.
Nile Gold Crystal Malt Lager. Beyond an ordinary malt.
Not for sale to persons under 18.
Something new in the horizon. Get your weekend started with the Kampala Sun. More gossip than your local bar. More photos than your phone can store. The one-stop paper for news on celebrities, sports, and the corporate scene. Get your copy every Friday for just 1,000 shillings. The Kampala Sun.
It used to be that when we paid our bills, we had both feet on the ground for ages in a long line of strangers. But now, we pay bills instantly with our feet relaxed in front of the TV. While we watch football with friends, you don't have to queue anymore. Pay your utility bills with Airtel Money. A simple, secure, and instant money transfer that leaves you with all the time to do the things you love. Pay Pay your bills. Send and receive money. Top up. Access your bank account and withdraw Airtel money across all InterSwitch ATMs countrywide. So, visit any Airtel shop today and register your SIM card. Airtel Money helps your money do more. Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90 is brought to you by Stanwick Bank.
Welcome back on Spectrum. Tonight, President Museveni defends his directive authorizing the signing of oil agreements despite a moratorium by Parliament. Did his explanation justify his actions? Our guest tonight, Honorable Mike Sebalu, Ugandan representative of the East African Parliament, coming from the Indian Party. Honorable Betty Aol, Deputy Opposition Chief Whip, also Gulu District Woman MP from the FDC Party, and Mr. Dickens Kamugisha, Executive Director of AFIEGO, which is the African Institute on Energy Governance. You can contribute by sending a message, Spectrum 7197. Dickens, let's move to the substance of it. The laws have been sent to Parliament. What quality of laws do we have?
I think we've just looked at that law. Previously the government was saying it was going to bring 3 laws at a go: the upstream, midstream, and the revenue management. At the moment, we have only revenue, the oil management law, which is looking at production, so you can't even know which one is going to be in the other bills that are not yet here. You can't know which one should be in this one. But all in all, you will find that most of the provision that we wanted to be in these laws, I think, are still lacking. Because the first one was address the existing agreements, whether these agreements that are already signed are going to be governed under these laws or not.
So if a law comes, that goes without saying, doesn't it?
Yeah, of course, definitely. But that's what the government has been saying. That still, these laws, the new laws that they are bringing, are also going to have an impact on the existing agreements. But unfortunately, now you see, you sign an agreement today, you bring a bill tomorrow. So meaning that
but fine, let's forget about the technicality. Let's talk about the quality of that law. Is it a good law?
I think we haven't really analyzed it, but if you look at the provisions, you can say they are good provisions.
Is it in line with the proposed national oil and gas policy?
Yes.
To address that thing too.
Yes, only that some of the things are lacking, like the EITI is already in the policy, but it's lacking in the law, because specifically which talks about transparency and accountability.
Yes.
It is not there. The other area that is lacking is about the sanctions for especially environmental abuse. That if a company or a government or any person, you abuse the environment through those oil activities, this is the punishment you are going to suffer. Then the other provisions, again, like the general provision, should be on sharing of royalties. There's no way you are going to be talking about the oil laws without addressing that issue. They have been saying oil is a national resource, so nobody should talk about the sharing. But there is no doubt whatsoever, because in the current bill, 93% is supposed to go to the central government, and then 7% is supposed to be shared by the kingdoms, by the districts, and those other entities.
That is 93% of the government's share.
Yes, it's supposed to be 93% is supposed to remain with the central government,
yes,
and then 7% to be shared by the kingdoms. They now have included the kingdoms, then the districts, but the law doesn't really specify whether the kingdoms and districts in the oil regions or the districts of Uganda. I think that needs to be made.
Well, why would they talk about other districts elsewhere? The government already takes care of that. They're talking about the districts in Bunyoro, obviously.
No, the law doesn't specify that, because a law must be specific.
True.
If a provision is not specific, you are going to get problems in implementing it. Then the other area is about especially catering for the communities in the oil region, because as we've been saying, there has been problems already. There are problems relating to land. Most of the land in the oil regions today, the land is owned communally, customary, and as a result, you find the companies actually and the government don't want to compensate those people, because if they have been grazing, they reach there, they find today the cows are not there, so this land doesn't belong to anybody. So we think the laws themselves need to address that. Either they amend the land laws, or they include provisions in the current laws, in the current bills, and those bills are lacking those provisions. The communities are talking about compensation and resettlement. Those are the areas when the president was talking about the refinery. You have now a refinery define about 29 square kilometers of land, which is being demarcated for the refinery.
Yes.
There are many people there. You are going to affect them.
A large amount of land.
Yes, it means you have to shift them from one place to another place.
Yes.
You have to compensate those ones who are being affected. So where is the specific law? And you know, we can be talking about the government being in charge, being in what, but the oil issues in almost worldwide must be catered for specifically, and taking into consideration that oil is always a very interesting resource.
All right.
Very many interests from within, inside and outside.
Different places.
They all come and combine.
Okay, you come from AFIEGO, which is a leading agency on these advocacy matters. Is civil society going to come out with a rejoinder to this law?
Yes, that's what actually
when do we expect?
Within the next 2 weeks.
2 weeks? It takes you 2 weeks to do that?
No, of course we want to have a therapy, options, because we can't just come up.
Well, you had the national oil and gas policy. Most likely you had a draft law yourself. You would have been proactive.
No, of course we had it, but you know, you remember sometime back when we analyzed the arguments, and because we didn't have the one saying, the government said, no, these ones were not the right arguments, you people, you want to mislead the public, and we said, let's now follow step by step. We don't want to be like government that doesn't want to follow the systems.
Yes.
We want to follow the systems, so that if we take our options, they are based on what was presented in Parliament.
Honorable Chan, do you think this is a good law? Does it address the concerns?
The bill.
Well, the bill.
The bill. Well,
the proposed law.
The proposed law. The proposed law still has the option of being what? Being worked on, and addition and subtraction can be made if we have to discuss the bill. So it is just a proposed law. I have no quarrel about it. I believe that with the support of technical people, we can still make that proposed law better. We can still work on it. And indeed, when we went for recess, we did not have what to discuss in Parliament.
Yes.
And my thinking was that if the executive was serious on this law, they could have brought it for us if they knew that we really needed to do something very quickly.
What do you mean?
That
they should have brought it before.
They should have brought it before.
Well, they needed time to create a good law, probably.
We have manpower, human resource.
You think?
At least with government, we have human resource. Even then, the civil society organization, then we have people who work for the executives. If something, I even told you about that law which was passed in February when we were for campaign. You know, if you want something,
but this one law is different. That one was a little bit
it's different, but this one is another one. Which, if the will was there, it's very technical. But we have technical people, no? Technical people are there. Yes. I believe that I'm not technical myself in this area, but I believe that there are technical people, and we also rely on civil society organization and also the masses. We should be able to come out with something good enough, and we could have come out with it earlier than maybe last week when that agreement was signed. We could have done it even in January. If it was not possible in December, it could have been done in January. So for me,
but I think even Edmond, I just wanted to make a point here. You know, you have the oil and gas policy which was put in place in 2008.
Yes.
Which clearly said that the existing laws were not sufficient. That the government was going to put a law in place. So imagine from 2008, now how many years are now? So if you say that the law is taken hold, that for all this long time we've been struggling, sure. But go ahead and sign agreements.
Too little, too late.
Yeah, I think for me the law is very timely. I think
it could have come before.
Yeah, definitely. The law is overdue. I agree. I agree with the
so we are happy.
But it is never too late. The issue is that not to leave the sector unregulated forever. So now that this law has been brought, I think the onus is now on Parliament, and I know Parliament is definitely has the capacity to deal with it, because this is a draft. And what does it entail to come up with a law? One, we will get this law read for the first time. And when it is read for the first time, it is forwarded to the relevant committee for further surgery and input. And in the process of the committee level, the committee will invite all stakeholders. Definitely civil society will have an opportunity, the technical people, the professional people, they will go to the committee and give their input. There is also a provision for public hearings where you go to the field, to the relevant stakeholders right down at the grassroots. And all that process is to ensure that the law is informed by the different stakeholders who are involved in the subject. And at that stage, you get the law, because this is a working document. This is simply a working document. It is subject to amendments. Yes. You can pass it with amendment. It could even be 90% amended. Yes. And you literally get a totally new thing. It could be 100% if you don't find any fault with it.
Right.
Or it can be passed with amendments.
True.
So that stage is where we need to maximize. Civil society needs to come, they need to read the law, propose amendments, and these amendments will be brought to the House. So the law can be what we want it to be.
Right.
Parliament can make that law what it wants it to be, depending on the different levels of engagement with the stakeholders. So now that it is before, I think concentration should be put on how do we come up with a law that meets the expectations of our people.
So there we are together.
We are together.
Right.
Because that process has to be undertaken, and the Parliament is the one that does the quality control. The law that comes out of Parliament is what law. It's what Parliament has made of it. And I believe my sister Honorable Achan and all members because even the relevant committee that deals with it, the other members of Parliament are allowed to go there and make their contribution.
Right.
So I think we can get a good law, and Parliament is now the one in charge, because it is now with the Parliament.
And let's talk about the contracts themselves. We haven't seen them in full, but today the President alluded to some of them, talking about our share. Is it a fair share?
Of course, that is the biggest challenge. You have a president who only has the information. He tells you what he thinks. There is no guarantee that actually what he's telling you is right, because, as you've been hearing,
you can't check it out.
The government has been saying that we have the best agreements almost in the world. But all these delays where he is saying that we are paying to companies because of the delays, it's not because the delays were coming from outside. They are coming from the agreements on arbitration clauses, on stabilization clauses. So the president comes and says, actually now the agreements are good. He says standard, they have now redefined the standard clauses. You can imagine the standard clause. These companies, they are very very experienced. You come and say you want to define, you want to leave the stabilization clauses inside, and you say you have redefined it. I don't know whether you are going to come up with 1+1, and that's what you think you want to get. If we don't want stabilization clauses, I think it is wise that we don't allow them in the agreements. Second, they have not told us whether actually the need to go outside for arbitration is removed in the agreements. So even if
you still want to see the contracts,
because for me I think that is the crux of the matter. Because if this Parliament is going to make these laws without the agreements, discussing the agreements, I'm very, very sure that they are going to do a wrong thing. That should be the first thing. See the agreements, discuss them, because it is the content of the agreements is as good as the content of the laws. If those two are not following each other, there is going to be a problem.
And for me, that's why I think that this presentation that has been made this afternoon should be looked at from a positive perspective and use it as a point of departure to engage more. Because right now we need, the Parliament needs more explanation on some of the aspects that have been covered. Let's look at some of these. Then let the law be brought before Parliament so that it informs the process of even doing legislation. Now, these are the kind of engagements that need to be undertaken.
Let me ask one question.
Yes.
Ignorantly. Is it possible for us to again amend what is already in the agreement? Well, will it not be breach of contract?
Let's look at, like us to discuss the quality of based on the information that we have. Let's look at what the president said. Before the recovery of their cost, the companies will be taking 74 barrels out of 100 produced. That is what they call cost oil, I believe.
Yes.
74% will go to the companies. Then profit oil, which is after the recovery of the cost, will be 42% for the other company, government 58%, and then he says that does not include tax. Then there will be a 30% tax, which is the corporation tax, I think, on barrels and royalties, right?
Then equity,
then 5% and 12% on. I only have a summary here.
In
equity 15%.
Yeah. So when you put all that put together, definitely,
do we get a good deal?
That is a good deal.
There are too many figures together, but do you think we get a good deal?
If you are to calculate a good deal from oil, concerning oil, there are very many details that you have to take into account. Because the good deal definitely must, I think, even like from now up to the time when we will complete the refinery for us to start producing, it is going to matter a lot. Because if the president was saying that actually they have decided to build the refinery, but the companies are also saying no, we want to also build a pipeline, and that he is going to accept if they bring good economics.
Well, we can't consume all the oil together in the region. We cannot.
No, but that's
the priority area now.
I think that's where exactly where we've been asking. If you are a good planner, you say, I'm going to build a refinery. And then at the same time, you have not calculated whether actually you have the market for all your products.
Well, you don't
all of a sudden, the companies are saying actually now we have to export the excess. So it means that, if you are saying that the refinery, to export the crude oil, you have to hit the pipeline from here to Mombasa. So now you have two infrastructure, the refinery, the pipeline. But you want the hard facts.
Let me get you short. Let's get the hard facts.
Yes.
We cannot consume all the oil that we produce. That's going to be produced. We cannot.
Yes.
One. Two.
Yes.
The company, the Talo and its group, did not want to build a refinery.
Yes.
And this contract that they signed is silent on that. It's basically it's silent on that. We don't have a firm commitment from Talo that they'll build a refinery.
But Edmond, that is exactly what we need. The study for you to evaluate the economic benefits of both a refinery and a pipeline. If you find that actually out of say 100,000 barrels that you are going to produce here, you don't have the market for it, that you can only consume around 15,000 out of 100,000 that you will be producing. So what do you do? Because our information, the fact that the president said that actually is waiting for the companies to do the economics of a pipeline, and if they convince him, is going to say actually we can build the pipeline.
I think you're talking about the figures themselves. We know broadly the oil that's going to be produced cannot be consumed, not even by Uganda, by the region. It cannot be consumed. Two, it is cheaper to have your own refinery and then export processed oil. What about Ochan?
Yeah, the best thing to do is to export finished good than exporting the raw materials.
Yeah.
That would be the best option if we want to have a lot of gain economically. But we need to be guided also by the technical people how it should be done, because we also have a lot about the environmental factor.
Yes.
We need to be guided on that. That is why the law has to the law which is going to be put in place has to take into consideration a lot from the.
But even the feasibility study is nowhere to be seen. They have been saying no. They did a feasibility study which helped them to say we want to build a refinery.
Honorable Sebalu.
But the fact that we cannot consume oil is not bad. It's
a matter of fact. Not even Uganda alone. The region we cannot consume.
Why can't you produce and export to?
Yeah, we want to export.
But we want to do
that. And I think we need to take this in proper perspective, because I heard as if we are debating in a manner that we are not agreed on the position of whether to have a refinery or not. I think the presentation that was made this afternoon clearly stated the issue of the refinery as a priority area, and it is going to be undertaken.
Yes.
And what is going to be undertaken, and the issue of the pipeline is secondary. The primary issue is the refinery. And the arguments that had been put forward by the companies that you can't have a good market around for finished products is definitely something that cannot make much economic sense. The market is there. within the region, even for export at an appropriate time. So having a refinery has all the advantages for us in terms of employment and other related offshoot products. Tarmac, even for our road system and all that. And that is something we really need to appreciate, and that was confirmed in this presentation this afternoon. Now, if we want to engage, these are the areas of now how is it going to be undertaken and the rest. But there was a firm commitment on that, because at first they had put two positions, that the pipeline should be of a higher priority. Then they put two. But what I had being put out by the president is that the issue of the refinery takes first point of doubt. Then the other one is when maybe later, and when it makes economic sense in terms of, because again, the building of the pipeline is supposed to be undertaken by the companies themselves. Then work out the costs of transportation. If it makes economic sense when they have built and they come up with a good rate, then it can be considered as a policy option. But the refinery issue is something that it is what we need, it's what we want, and it is what we are going to do.
Why can't you present evidence of the different options, development options that you have evaluated as a government? Because I'm very sure even the refinery, yes, it is good, but it must be built on evidence, not on let's get something clear.
Let's get something clear.
I'm very sure would be a very good document to present to Parliament to help them understand why government has decided a refinery.
My brother needs to appreciate. You see, in this presentation, it was not about all the evidence. Now, that was made as a statement of fact. And the president indicated that his team in the ministry have done all the technical work. Now, what Parliament needs to do is to take it to another level. That in your presentation, you indicated that we are going to do a refinery. What is the technical basis for that? Now, that's when you get some of these other issues coming on board. But in the presentation today, 1 hour presentation, to come with all the technical reports, I think that is not how Parliament. That's not how Parliament works. Now the committee has all the liberty to call for such supportive documents. And I believe my honorable colleague here will definitely undertake that. We've got this statement. What is the corroborating technical support documents for it? That is now what Parliament will have to do. I think it is within their powers.
Let's get the perspective clearly before we move to another point. The oil companies prefer the pipeline. They prefer to export crude. The government prefer to have a refinery. And that now is settled.
It is settled.
The government has won because they say now the pipeline is a separate.
Those are some of the like the stabilization clause and that aspect of the refinery vis-a-vis pipeline. Those were
and the challenges that the companies have been winning at every step. Now the government didn't want to go outside for arbitration. It went there. It wanted to remove the subordination clause. It has failed and said it has revised it. Don't be surprised that actually even the refinery might even fail because the companies are the ones.
I think the companies are the ones visiting.
Because for me, I want a refinery, but the fact that the government is actually not transparent to get support from Parliament. Because for me, I think now almost it's like 7 months since they did the feasibility study. You don't need to wait for Parliament to compare government to bring the report. Just take the report to Parliament and the support.
But there's even information which is useful, which my friend needs to know, that the feasibility study was done by but it was essentially the team, our team in the ministry. It had quite a good local
Let's move something else.
content, and that is something we need to appreciate. Even the capacity we've built. We tend to undermine everything that is Ugandan, but we've done some good capacity building in that ministry, and the high time we appreciate what they are doing.
Who are the people who undermine?
We need to put them on check. No, my brother, the way he's talking as if nothing is being done in this area. I think a lot has been done, and we need to appreciate what the ministry and our technical officials are doing, encourage them to even do better in the best interest of our country. But we need to appreciate.
Let's move to something else. The National Oil and Gas Policy 2008 talks about a national resource fund, and this was drawn up by NOAA, which helped us, which has a lot of experience mining onshore oil.
By Norway?
well, now helped us draft the national oil and gas policy, and many people think it's a very good. Do you think the resource fund has been addressed well? How the money gets used?
Well, I have not internalized that.
Dickens, are you comfortable the money will land in good hands?
But of course, if that's where we started from. If you have a government that does not respect systems, because like the law is going to be creating these funds, how will these funds be protected if you have a governor, Bank of Uganda, actually telling the public, I was told I remove these national reserves, then I will replace them with oil money. But the oil money, the parliament itself, nobody has discussed how the oil money is going to be used. But the Bank of Uganda is saying we used this money without even parliamentary approval. So for me,
so you think the money is not safe? Let's get that clear. Even in the central bank, which is the proposal is the NRF, the National Resource Fund, should be in the central bank. You don't think that's a good thing? It's not safe.
At the moment, we have now we are going to even keep the oil money away from the people who are corrupt. Because even in the speech today, you had the ministers who are suspected of getting bribes. They were there on the front seat. So if they are the people who are going to be keeping our oil money, to be honest, it doesn't matter how much money we are going to be earning from oil. It is going to disappear in the hands of those corrupt people.
Are we fetching water in a basket?
Well, we can also say that, because we can borrow leaf from Sudan. We have seen how Sudan have been handling their oil. Individuals just go and get to handle the way they want. So even here in Uganda, if we flash back to last year, how oil fund has been used by individuals, ministers, those in positions. People they're not serious. They don't care about the masses. They don't care about Ugandans. If we care about Ugandans, we care that whatever resources we have here, natural resources, we need to see that it addresses also those masses there, the people who are down there.
Yeah, I think let's be optimistic for once. I appreciate oil.
It's like a family. That has got a good job. Drink the money.
I appreciate oil is an unrenewable resource, and therefore the most important aspect of its management is how you use the oil revenue. And in these presentations, we've been given the key strategic drivers of the economy, where this money will be invested to generate more capacity for the country. They were talking about ensuring that we have sustainable electricity, making sure that we build more dams along the Nile Valley, the issue of nuclear energy being explored as an alternative source of energy, transport, especially the railway. Let me come. So,
it's transport in Rwanda, but also we have seen it here ourselves.
Transport, especially the railway, which definitely has good. Then scientific innovations. Those are the areas. So the idea of imagining that it is not going to be the money will not reach. But we need to put systems in place. The National Resource Fund need to be dealt with. I need to build the system. It should be a law to manage the National Resource Fund.
Thank you very much. So, Mike Sebalu, Uganda representative for the EALA, Hon Betty Aol, Deputy Opposition Chief. Mr. Dickens Kamugisha, Executive.
Our prayer is that we should not personalize these resources.
Yeah, I appreciate.